Who is this? Part of me was like, how funny would it be if I was just a barista? Welcome to Cold Stone. Can I get you anything? These are crazy.
I feel like she's going to run out of time just freaking out.
Oh my that's not my chin. It goes up.
Welcome back to Why Is That Funny? I'm Cal Hoffman and I don't need money. I don't even like it. You've all been asking me to explain this episode and Dropout knew it because they have just put it up for free on their main page. Go watch it if you haven't already. It's linked in the description. This is Why Is That Funny? The show where we break down the mechanics of comedy and explain why things work the way they do. And I think we're going to see some really cool stuff happening. So let's check it out.
My dentist, I won't tell. God, this is too much.
She really is kind of viscerally led. Like so much of her comedy and just her approach to entertainment in general is just feeling the moment. So as far as we've seen, at least, she's not got a character in mind as she's going into this. And it might be a less structured version of this VIP thing than we've seen in the past. And that is in no way a bad thing.
I wish for a bigger guest house and 1,000 more wishes than for Connie Chung to give me a nickname. Good evening. I'm Vic Michaelis, back with another edition of Very Important People.
In front of the chair. Thank you.
I'm such a fan. I'm so happy that you're here. I know who you are. Can you please introduce yourself?
Boys, can you pick me up and bring me back in again?
No, we don't need to go. We don't need to go back.
I gotta do this again. Don't talk while I'm doing it, okay?
Okay, so that's sort of a note for me that we have. Normally, I'm sort of the one that runs the interviews here. And actually, you know what? This is a great note from sort of my hero and friend. And so I'm going to say, we all have a story to tell, and sometimes those stories need to be shared with the world. Good evening. I'm Vic Michaelis, back with another edition of Very Important People.
I've said in past videos, if you want to get an improviser to do something in a scene, you better tell them, don't do that thing. That's like international hidden communication language. We know, okay, you're telling me not to do that thing because you want me to do that thing. You, the performer, wants me to do that thing. And Vic, what did they do? Responded immediately with a whole screed of words. I think that is going to come up probably throughout this episode.
Start spreading the news.
Okay, everyone, round of applause.
Hello, Vegas. I'm Funoli.
Vegas.
Any birthdays in the house? Birthdays in the house.
Funoli.
It was my birthday last week.
What's your name?
Vic.
Fly me to the Vic. Happy birthday, Vic.
Okay. Incredible. Can I just say, I am such
I'm sorry I have COVID.
Okay, so maybe everybody just sort of...
Mask up!
My uncle bought me a record player, and I used to listen to your records nonstop. Thank you so much for coming on.
I can't believe
today.
I'm here.
You watched the show?
I heard of it.
Okay. Well, because we've been trying to track you down for an interview for a couple of years now, sort of since the beginning. First guest, I said,
at this.
I want Funoli on the show.
Look at this.
And they said, no, he's busy. He's not interested.
Any birthdays? Bat mitzvahs?
At the top of a scene, you want to make strong decisions about who your character is. With Vic, we have this long-running thread of the motivations for that character being wanting to be loved, but that coming out in a misdirected, misguided, kind of like very controlling way. On this occasion, we also seem to get really big signaling that Vic is going to be like a sycophant towards this person. Meanwhile, we have Funoli, who is this always on, look, I'm just cursoring back and forward, and every still that we have of Angela as this character is this really always on kind of presence. This is a character that is just obsessed with being in that kind of characterization is what I'm seeing. Look, got carried on twice for a big entrance.
I never leave Vegas. And
Yes.
I'm so grateful you guys had me because I hear you need a new theme song.
We would love a new theme song, actually. That would be fantastic. We sort of had the same one for a while.
Because I don't do a lot of personality stuff.
Well, that's a problem.
We have setting up of the narrative there. We have the theme song and we have the, what did she say there?
We would love a new theme song, actually. That would be fantastic. We sort of had the same one for a while.
Because I don't do a lot of personality stuff.
I don't do a lot of personality stuff. Matching up with what she's giving with all this big always on thing, we have an avenue to explore there in the narrative of this episode. We're looking to go on some kind of journey together. A narrative can be as simple as two people start with relationship A, and over the 20 minutes it progresses into version B. And I think Finale not being in touch with having a conversation style appearance will be something really interesting to explore. Plus the theme song, that gives just a kind of like MacGuffin, a not really important thing that helps give a feeling of structure to what we're pursuing in the episode.
Well, that's surprising for me to hear because you did have a short-lived talk show.
The network ripped it out of my heart.
And you got a mic here.
It's kind of like a blankie.
Okay, well then you're welcome to keep it. Okay.
This is what we'll do. Cut this out.
Finale! You absolute rapscallion. Are we catching this?
You are gorgeous.
Really?
I really mean it.
Compared to who?
I just say that to people.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's just you met so many famous people, you know what I mean? And famously you had a falling out with
Sorry, compared to who is an insane way to respond to a compliment.
Well, then you're welcome to keep it.
You are gorgeous.
Really?
I really mean it.
Compared to who?
To have distilled down their character into sound bites like that. Like that's, I'm sure, just come off the top of the dome. But that's why I'm saying you can make a decision like that about a character from the top of a scene, that this feels like a self-involved and really deeply insecure character. The imagination is infinite, right? And making a decision like that turns this pool of infinite ideas into something where specific ones start bubbling up towards the top, so that when somebody gives you a compliment, if you've already strongly figured out that your character is insecure, then you're going to be your body's going to be feeling questions about who am I in competition with. And it's so great to see stuff like that. It's just tiny little snippets, so good.
I just say that to people.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's just you met so many famous people, you know what I mean? And famously you had a falling out with Cher.
I told you not to bring that up on you. Can we go fucking back?
Go back
and not mention that whore's name?
Who? Cher?
You did it again!
Okay,
Want somebody to do something? Tell them not to do it.
Go back
and not mention that whore's name?
Who? Cher?
You did it again!
Okay, I don't
want to get those boys to pick me up again.
And we don't have to. Honestly, we're gonna blah, blah, blah. I just think they don't make stars like you anymore.
I say that all the time.
Is there something that you can't do?
I'm not good at sitting down having a conversation.
there we go.
Sure.
Feel a little out of my depth here.
I get that, and I'm hearing you and I'm listening.
But I appreciate it. I don't meet a lot of people today that still like my stuff. I've been told it has to get off of Speedify because it doesn't hold up to the times.
Okay, well, hey, listen, your album, Do You Believe in Life After Love, not that one, changed my life. When you sang that line, do you know which one I'm talking about? When you say that line, no, I can't. Nobody wants to hear that.
Look at this.
Let's make some guesses about how Vic responds here. We have Vic already strongly established as someone that is deeply insecure, but wanting the limelight as a result of that. It is probably going to be quite a turn up to the moment of being like, no, and then locking the zone, you know?
Come on.
I'm not a singer.
I love it.
It's like an audition. I can't. Do you believe in life? Not that one. Like, it changed my life because I was like, can we get my new friend some water? Can we get my new friend some water?
Sparkles on it.
Okay.
Give me back.
Nope. And of course.
That was gorgeous. I love listening to the youth sing.
I also want to scroll back. The game has been set up to be played of Vic being an interrupter. I think we've got a little preview of this here. Watch what Vic says here.
Is there something that you can't do?
I'm not good at sitting down having a conversation.
Sure.
Feel a little out of my depth here.
I get that, and I'm hearing you and I'm listening.
Now, that's not exactly a game move. A game of the scene is where you have this comedic pattern that you repeat over and over. That's not the next move of this game of I'm gonna talk when you don't want me to talk, but I think that's kind of showing that that is still on Vic's mind.
That was gorgeous. I love listening to the youth sing.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. You said something about gifting us with a new theme song.
So yeah, I'm trying to do more My agent says this. My agent, she's 106.
Your agent is 106?
Yeah, doesn't use emails. Try to have an agent who doesn't use email.
Also, blink and you would miss it, but we've just had a little bit of return to narrative grounding, and then that's allowed us to go back into crazy stuff. So remember when I said that established points for the narrative, one of them being the MacGuffin of a theme song to be written? That is just giving just enough structure that we don't feel like we're free floating in crazy land all the time. Because if we go straight from Finoli being carried in to Vic singing a ripoff of a Cher song to Finoli talking about his 106-year-old agent, that's just going to feel like crazy thing after crazy thing for us, and we start to feel kind of unmoored. If you start in a crazy plane, everything else that happens that's crazy is at that same level. There's no tension to release in the form of laughter. You need somewhere normal to start from so the tension can build up as you start to notice strange things, and then the release can happen when those strange things get pointed out. In a split second, Vic has mentioned the song again. Finoli has gone on to talk about whatever this is about having an ancient agent.
My agent says this. My agent, she's 106.
Your agent is 106?
Yeah, doesn't use emails. Try to have an agent who doesn't use email.
Try having an agent at all, you know? They can sort of book you on stuff.
Oof. Just interrupts the flow of the interview completely.
No. Yeah, my agent.
Almost impossible to pick up and have some good banter here.
Right,
Okay.
right, of course.
It's a lateral game move, but that again is showing that they're on the same page about that communication rift being a game of the scene. We have had that peak where it got really big and we got that laugh from that initial thing, and then we need to let it settle back down again, and that can, like I said, be a split second of grounding to let that hit the floor, because then we start building up the tension automatically. Now, subliminally, now that we've seen them have that rift twice, us as an audience, even the least comedy educated, is waiting unconsciously for what is the next moment that is going to happen. Where is that going to go next? Surely they're going to have some kind of stumble over that same kind of thing again. So we're building up the tension so that next time it happens, we're primed for it to be a big laugh.
You know? They can sort of book you on stuff.
Oof. Just interrupts the flow of the interview completely.
No. Yeah, my agent.
Almost impossible to pick up and have some good banter here.
Right,
Okay.
right, of course. Well, you started in a family band.
The organ flail.
The organ flail, and you seven were thick as thieves. One by one, they mysteriously go missing.
I miss my brothers and sisters every day.
Yeah, and a lot of people said, what happened to them? Why are you the only one left?
Showbiz! Kick out who doesn't belong!
Okay, so,
I'm so sorry, I can't hold eye contact with you. It's just not good eye contact.
because I'm so beautiful?
No, I just want to look elsewhere.
And you know what? You're giving such good notes, because I feel like sometimes I get so locked into like, let's do the interview. And it's just sort of like, what if we just looked other places, right?
Look at that. I don't think anyone ever told Barbara Walters that she's a performer too.
Do you mean that?
I think you gotta perform more.
What an interesting flow the two of them have together. I'm wondering if this is coming from what I was saying at the very, very top about Angela being much more instinct and in the moment driven. So we have had these patterns. I know that Angela is UCB trained. Angela has that. We've seen bits of that rhythm already. But very often, I mean, the most natural thing would be for the characters to then start drifting apart a little in tension, and you have to find a reason to bring them back together. And so Vic has their character reason of, I'm a sycophant towards Finoli. I'm not even going to notice really when Finoli is insulting me and being mean, which, by the way, it's not good eye contact. That is a beautiful insult. In some ways, that lack of specifics is a real specific, and specifics are funny. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, yes, Vic has a reason in character to stay drawn to this other character even when there's conflict happening. Finoli, on the other hand, seems to really be oscillating between like saying quite a mean thing there and then being really like warm and forthcoming and being like, oh, you should perform more and all of this kind of stuff. So I think that's fun. That makes a scene really dynamic between two people, but I also think it's useful that they have those kind of narrative items that they framed before to keep some kind of direction that is being headed in together.
I think you gotta perform more. Is that a digital picture frame?
Oh, okay, so this is sort of my waterfall. This season I said I want a huge water feature.
Say that, perform it. This season I want a big water feature.
I'm definitely projecting here, but I haven't met a single comedian, improv, stand-up, or otherwise that hasn't struck me as significantly neurodivergent. But we went straight from insult to the you should perform more to this picture frame. Now, improv instincts are kicking in because that perform more becomes part of the narrative. It's another narrative hook to reground things, and they've linked that picture frame into the performing thing. But isn't it funny how your mind can really bounce back and forward like that?
I think you gotta perform more. Is that a digital picture frame?
Oh, okay, so this is sort of my waterfall. This season I said I want a huge water feature.
Say that, perform it. This season I want a big water feature.
This season I want a big water feature.
Yeah, now, but do it in your voice.
Okay.
Do it like I got a hairy cock.
Okay. This season I want a big water feature.
Now go like this, ready? This is my floor!
This is my floor.
No, this is your show, right?
This is my show.
You gotta go, this is my floor!
This is my floor.
Yeah. Okay, now ask me the next question.
Okay, what are your hopes and dreams?
This is what are your
hopes and dreams? What are your hopes and dreams?
I love Vic's acting. That's all I wanted to say on this pause.
My third wife, Miranda, call me back.
89, the Berlin Wall is coming down, and you sang that song, Build Me Up. And so I was hoping we could play a snippet of the music video.
Oh, you cutting the clips that I know I gotta do later.
Let's go ahead.
You dirty, dirty person. Hey, Gorbachev! You say Berlin, I say wall. Wow!
Well, what I like about, honestly, this phase for you was the acrobatics that you had going on.
Don't you dare. One more pimp out.
I did a video recently where I talked about pimping. I think it was another video that had Angela in it, a Smosh video. And when two improvisers know each other very well, I think these two are old friends. It's okay to do. It's still like a kind of jab in the ribs kind of thing, but creating a scenario where somebody has to do something that is a little bit challenging or different, like saying to someone, oh, why don't you recite that Shakespearean sonnet you're always practicing? You know, that kind of thing. And then the person feels the obligation out of improv law to do it. We call that pimping. You don't want to do that if you're at a jam and you're performing with someone that you've never performed with before, but it can be fun for this kind. It becomes quite a like meta humor kind of thing where we as an audience are aware of the mechanics that are happening kind of just above the scene. If you're interested in that more, go and see the Smosh Pit Theatre video that I did. It has a whole long scene that is all based on pimping.
Don't you dare. One more pimp out. I'll give you one more and you're done.
What I love most about this song is when you took a break, you're sort of catching your breath and you sort of do the alphabet backwards. It
The
really
worst thing
is.
you could ask me to do. Z, ABC, ZY. Nope. ABC. So listen, what kind of song you want? What's the song of the show now? I'd love to be a part of like the new media. Like Gen Z watches this shit, right?
Well, you know, it's a lot of people in their 40s.
40s. That's a young demographic that I would love to get.
Okay, well, fantastic. If we can get a PA to fly in Finoli's piano.
I wonder how accurate that is for a Dropout's audience. I'm 37.
Do you want me to hold that?
No.
No.
I want it right here.
Okay, and thank you.
Thank you so
much for
Could
that.
you get something that could be my balls?
I think, honestly, what we're going for is, are you sort of looking for a...
You always have to pose for a picture before you sing.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I'm dabbling in vocal lessons myself. Okay.
You are?
So,
Thank you.
Now here's an interesting thing that I think is kind of related to Angela's go with the flow instinct approach. I think Vic quite a few times in this episode has thrown out some opportunities to go back to that talking about themselves kind of narcissistic game. And Angela has been kind of quite, like sometimes has grabbed that and used that game and been quite mean about it, and other times been quite like a kind and interesting. She seems like she's probably quite a kind person in general. Quite interested is what I meant to say. But it's really funny to me to see that go back and forward. I wouldn't call that a lack of consistency or anything like that, just in case it sounds like that. No, I think it's quite compelling to watch, I think, because it subverts a lot of what can feel like quite stale, dry rules when things play out exactly how you expect the rhythm to go. I'm pretty sure because we're still early on, I'm pretty sure we'll still get that game, but it's been so fun to have it kind of dangled and then taken away again.
okay. Well,
Hey, for camera, how's that look?
I think that's pretty bad for camera.
Let's redo it for the pictures, too.
Okay, I see. Perfect, fantastic, and I think we got that.
Okay, tell me what you want. What kind of vibe is your show?
So
You
right now-
wanna be Barbara Walters?
No, I'm not wannabe. I'm Vic Michaelis. Well, and it's confusing.
It's so hard to follow you.
What do you mean? Like online or just here? I talk fast?
No, it's the notes. There's no melody.
I should
in
be
the
sort of-
way you're speaking.
What?
What? Give me that. What? You gotta move your fucking mouth.
I thought you said I was moving my mouth too fast.
I need to hear you.
This is speaking to Vic's incredible acting. What I love is the delivery and how it is quite flat. And we've seen this in the episode that I covered with Jeremy Colleen, the Boris episode. Right at the top of the episode, Jeremy got them to do this kind of mating dance thing. And even when engaging in that kind of thing, it's still all through a filter of this really awkward, staid, standoffish kind of thing. It's really restrained and it's consistent enough to be picked up and turned into whatever, if this is going to turn into a game or something that they're going to play together of let's vary your voice around. It's so great.
I should
In
be sort
the
of-
way you're speaking.
What?
What? Give me that. What? You gotta move your fucking mouth.
I thought you said I was moving my mouth too fast.
I need to hear you. This is my fault.
Hey, let's do the theme song.
What do you want in the theme?
Honestly, I'm looking for something that says like, I'm here for serious journalism. I'm here for the news, but Are you okay?
Ow!
Hey, okay. What did it hit?
Ow!
Okay, here we go. We're fine. How about I hold this for you?
Medic!
Here we go. We're fine. We don't need a medic.
Ow! That hit my inner thigh.
Okay.
Oh!
And there we go. And we're so good after that.
What were you doing?
I think that was such a massive moment that I would be shocked if that doesn't happen again. That didn't really get framed. Vic didn't say like, wow, that's crazy that you hurt yourself, but it didn't need it because it was so huge that that's imprinted on the memory. And so it becomes imprinted in your kind of instincts while you're performing, and it just bubbles back up before too much time has passed and you play it again. And that is how we find a game.
Going down here.
So sort of what I'm working on right now is like you sort of got in a situation where you needed something and I said, I'm gonna be the one to help and I'm gonna help so hard.
There you go. I'm hearing your voice do stuff.
Okay, look at that. I'm an excellent learn. I mean, that's okay. So for the theme song that we're looking for something that says, I'm a serious journalist. I have integrity both in my conviction and also in my ability to tell a story, you know? We're here to get to the heart of something.
Stop!
It worked. We got Angela yelling stop, and that has come as a result of Vic taking as many opportunities as they could to blabber on for as long as possible until they got noticed. And did it ever get noticed there?
Excellent learn. I mean, that's okay. So for the theme song that we're looking for integrity both in my conviction and also in, we're here to get to the heart of something.
Stop! We're warming up.
Okay.
Wasn't Angela in Starkid?
No.
Sorry.
I sort of thought you would have done this before.
Ow!
Okay, so
There you go.
And you brought this piano. Okay, so did you bring this or is this ours? You're so lucky I did my breathing before this because I would be so mad. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Here. Ah!
Can I get another one of these?
If we can get another one of these. This one is full still. Do you not want? No?
I need to open it to feel better.
Of course.
And Vic had such quick responses because they've established sycophancy to Finoli and disdain for the crew. So combine those into one, and what do you get? You get immediate ability to jump up, really care, be passionate. Emotion is always funny. Half committal to something is not funny. So jump up out of your seat, kneel down, yell at the crew. It's all there.
Can I get another one of these?
If we can get another one of these. This one is full still. Do you not want? No?
I need to open it to feel better.
Of course.
I love the juice's first aid.
86 years old and you're still out here and you're making theme songs. It's really incredible, and I'm sorry that you keep getting injured on our set. When you brought those 6
That is what framing would sound like. Sorry that you keep getting injured on our set is Vic kind of naming the game, saying as performer Vic to performer Angela, the name of that game is you keep getting injured on our set. And that gives them the ability to expand it out. It could become Finoli runs into a lighting rig or trips over the thing. So then it doesn't have to just be the piano, right? It's not, the game isn't you dropped the piano. The game is you're injured here on our set, in our environment with all of the opportunities that that provides.
I genuinely remember thinking, that's what I want to do with my life, except I want to do it in the sense that I'm interviewing people. You know what I mean? I want to feel like there's 6 lions on stage with me during a Super Bowl halftime show. That's your impact.
Did my agent tell you to say that?
No, we tried to get your agent on the phone a lot, and your agent wouldn't call us back.
Those lions changed my life.
I remember reading an interview where you said those lions were like your sons, and then your sons sort of came out and said that you hadn't spoken to them in 8 years.
Because they're friends with that bitch.
Share. Sorry?
Let's get you a theme song.
And hey,
If you hadn't had an idea of what games of the scene are, hopefully this is helping you build a picture. Another game of the scene was Finoli's rivalry with Cher. Right at the top, they said something about Cher's name got mentioned, and Angela Finoli screamed about it and swore and said, not again. And then the album, the life-changing album, a weird thing, it's so big and memorable, it gets pointed out. We have a little hidden communication between the performers about that being a notable thing, and then it's there in the back of their mind, not to force a way back into the scene, but when an organic opportunity, as soon as that opportunity comes up, then you let that back out into the scene again. I didn't register it, right? But it was still building up enough unconscious tension in me of the potential for it to be said again, that the laugh that it got from me was pretty good.
I remember reading an interview where you said those lions were like your sons, and then your sons sort of came out and said that you hadn't spoken to them in 8 years.
Also, Vic is doing a lot of adding details to Finoli's character. You can do this. You can give the other character as much information as they want. They'll take on the information that you give them, and it makes the scene easier for both people. It is not bad manners at all. It's extremely, extremely good manners if you tell the other character something about themselves, because that's more stuff that's then bubbled to the top for them. It makes their character easier to play. It's more decisions that have been pre-made. Vic has done that about so many details about Finoli's life, and all stuff that has been quite damning as well, despite Vic seeming to love Finoli. Like, seems like all of his siblings got murdered, and he hasn't spoken to his 3 sons in 8 years. It's good stuff.
And then your sons sort of came out and said that you hadn't spoken to them in 8 years.
Because they're friends with that bitch.
Share. Sorry?
Let's get you a theme song.
And hey, if you need anything for the rest of the day, you let me know. You call me.
I like to sit in a metronome sometimes.
Process. I didn't know this was how songwriting works.
Sit in it, right? What is tempo, eh?
I remember reading an interview where you
Because Vic has been told stop while the piano has been playing, that's making the pattern even more specific. Vic now knows that Angela has caught on to wanting to do the talking and being told to stop thing. And that being hooked to when the piano is being played with, when some of the songwriting process is being done, that's multiple pattern aspects that make it inevitable that this is the right moment for this to be done. So we are split seconds away from a stop talking. I can almost guarantee it.
I like to sit in a metronome sometimes.
Process. I didn't know this was how songwriting works.
Sit in it, right? What is tempo, eh?
I remember reading an interview where you talked about how Mozart...
Enough sparkles will affect the tempo.
Enough sparkles will affect...
Shut the fuck up. Is this the tempo we're moving?
Is that the
tempo? Is this the tempo my dick feels good in? Huh? Is this a tempo?
We're gonna get this heightened now. So, you know, if you watch a sketch show and they have like a recurring character that appears a few times, the first one will be a kind of mundane scene and you learn what that character is and what their thing is. And then the next time round, it'll be a bit bigger and a bit crazier. And the third time round, they'll be in like space or in the White House or something. That's what heightening does. Here, the heightening initially is just coming from like every time you've been told not to do something and then you do it anyway. That kind of heightens things because the stakes have risen, because you're on shakier territory with that person. You're getting on thinner and thinner ice. But it's going to need a bigger heighten now. It's going to need some kind of twist to it. The grounding, it's just for a split second, one line at a time, but it's Angela focusing in on the narrative grounding of trying to build that scene. So that's the base of this waveform. And straight away, Vic is doing the talking, which is building up the tension. And every time there's a stop, that is the peak of the game. So I'm curious what the big explosion is going to be.
Is this the tempo we're moving?
Is that the
tempo? Is this the tempo my dick feels good in? Huh? Is this a tempo?
I'm getting my dick's moving to that.
I can't do this.
No, me either. No, me either.
Right?
If we
I
can
can't
get
get through
silence
one
on
demo.
set, we got to be so quiet while the artist is working, please.
There's no accountability here.
There's
one's
none.
calling this person
There's
out.
no accountability, and it's something we've been working so hard on since I got back from Hungary. No, I'm sorry that you had to witness that.
Hungry, good broads here. Yeah.
Okay.
Our heightening was blaming it on the crew, so we have a combination of games. It is kind of difficult to get multiple variations on, I'm going to try and write a song, you're going to talk over me. But if you combine in an additional layer of something else that's been established of, we're blaming it on the crew, then that's multiplying factors, right?
Getting my dick's moving to that.
Special mention
I
for
can't
that.
do this.
No, me either. No, me either.
Right?
Okay.
Sit in it.
Okay.
This doesn't feel like your vibe.
So I want sort of like Nancy Grace, but in a way that is. Oh, and I think we got the picture. So I.
And that was one I spotted before, but it's quite simple, so I didn't call it out. Posing for a picture with a thing, very, very simple game of the scene. It's not really a big feature game, so it's not having a lot of heightening. It's just nice to, like, it starts tickling the funny bone kind of thing to come back to that established pattern.
don't think we need more pictures. And they got, I think, plenty with your new penis. Hey, everyone, if we could just calm down.
Turn it up!
And we got
There's
that
the
off.
big one.
Give me another one.
And we can get another one of these. Okay.
It's all one game, God. Pose with the piano, hurt yourself with the piano, get a can. That sounds crazy. And if you're just watching this casually, if I switch off my improv coach brain, I probably wouldn't even put all of that together. But if you wrote it out like that, that sounds insane. That's not a thing. But when it comes up organically in improv, that is what Game of the Scene looks like. And it's so beautiful.
We can get another one of these. Okay.
Can I tell you something?
I would love to hear anything that you have to say.
I can't do this.
You can't do a theme song? You can't do the interview?
I'll write your theme song. But you gotta tell my agent to stop booking me. Look at me. Men used to go to war.
Yeah.
Look at me.
Hey, you're doing important things too. You wrote that theme song for the Marines.
I thought it was too high pitched.
No. Come on, let's play a little clip of song.
Fucking damn it. Jesus Christ.
Thank you, brave people.
It's a good song. I looked gorgeous doing it.
She could have dug her own grave further there, didn't she? My prediction came true. God, I'm losing count of how many predictions are coming true in this one. When you establish a narrative hook like that up at the beginning, and particularly if you have two where one is very character driven and one is more process driven, that one being the song one, it's kind of nice to follow the MacGuffin for a little while. But the character development is a much slower burn and really spread out. That seed gets planted in our brain. We can spend some time focusing on the MacGuffin of the song, and that helps us get comfortable, helps the improvisers get comfortable as well, and just spend some more time talking to build up other specifics that will make it easier to work on the character stuff later. And then start to bring in the character stuff, because that's where the dramatic payoff happens. And I don't care if improv is funny, it just needs to be compelling. It just needs to be watchable, and character stuff is compelling and watchable.
You look tired.
Me?
And that's why I think I feel safe telling you I'm tired.
Just sort of like you don't want to perform anymore? Okay, well, if you don't want to be singing, what do you want to be doing?
I miss naps.
You want to retire. Here's the thing. You're teaching me how to be a big dog. How about I give you the space right now to make a formal retirement announcement? I swear to God, you got to blur this.
I don't want this person's feet near me.
Watch this. Hi, little lapdog. Hi, buddy. Hi, pal. You're such a good little dog. Do you want an energy drink?
No, I want water.
Yeah, you haven't had water in a long time, huh?
But I can't go out of town unless I sing.
You can go out of town unless you sing. You have made, I would imagine, so much money. Plus that inheritance that you got from when all of your siblings died.
Adding in all the details.
What if you just made an announcement and said, hey, Manoli's taking a little break?
I couldn't.
You can.
Not on camera.
You could.
Will you hold my hand if I do it?
I would love to hold your hand. What an honor. What sort of a newsworthy honor.
I just want to make a quick prediction about when we do get that turn and Finoli actually leans into because nobody improves on this show, right? So when Finoli leans into actually staying as a megastar, we're going to learn that this for Vic is a narcissism moment. Vic's main character motivation underlying all of everything is that insecurity and self-centeredness. So I think we're going to get a very quick turn to like nasty probably from Vic, even if that's just temporary. I think that's going to be at the top of that wellspring of like automatic pre-made decisions based on who your character is.
What an honor. What sort of a newsworthy honor.
That line.
Do I have to carry you?
Cut out that
And
tear.
sort of-
I can't believe. Okay.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
For the news.
Okay. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. So we got a formal announcement. Maybe we hit that spotlight.
Okay. There it is. The spotlight. Oh, wow. It feels so good. I don't know. Vic, I might sing. I don't know if I'm gonna retire or sing. The spotlight's really feeling good.
Have you seen the size of the smile on my face? That is because the crew are improvising at the same time as they are. And we've seen them do lighting cues stuff in the past. Check out my Boris video if you want a little deconstruction of that interplay between the performers and the crew. Vic saying, let's get this ready for a formal announcement, let's get the spotlight on, is really a heavy nudge to Angela to be like, okay, you should make the decision to love the spotlight. Why else do we? You could make that announcement in any kind of format. The spotlight is really relevant. It's like temptation for your character's motivations.
I don't know if I'm gonna retire or sing. The spotlight's really feeling good.
Watch this. Yeah. And so, and look, nobody died. Nothing terrible happened. Nothing fell out of the sky.
Pure living on instinct from Angela here. That's ridiculous.
You're just Finoli.
Just Finoli.
Yeah. And what does just Finoli want to say?
Any birthdays in the house?
No.
Any birthdays in the house?
I took my shoes
Birthday?
off for this. We're gonna just go ahead. Finoli, I have some rapid fire
Cut all
questions
that
for you, if
shit
that's
out.
okay.
That
Here's
was
the turn.
fucking awful and vulnerable.
Finoli, do you have any
I took my shoes off for this. Vic, immediate turn. Great, nailed it. Called it.
Finoli, do you have any pets?
One chew toy.
That's a pet?
My old dog who died 20 years ago used to still chew it and I keep it.
But that's not a pet then, that's sort of like an item.
It was my pet's pet.
Okay. I will say okay to that. Do you have any hidden talents? Okay, do we have any hidden talents, Finoli?
I can find the clit.
Seeing as you're 3 wives deep, I don't know how true that is, Finoli. There we
Any
go.
birthdays?
Okay, no, okay, sit. What
Any
are
birthdays?
What are you binge watching currently?
Breaking Bad.
Really?
Da 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 da.
Okay, are you a good dancer?
Yeah. Spotlight.
Okay, and so that's amazing. Name a relationship deal breaker.
When they're rude to waiters.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, Finoli, what is something on your bucket list?
Ooh, I've never gone wine tasting.
Well, would you like to try wine tasting?
Okay.
Let's bring in some wine for a wine tasting.
Oh, wow, I just said that out of my ass.
Yeah, you did. This has got some of the most chaotic energy. I thought that the Boris episode was super chaotic, but that was chaotic in a different way. It was being so technical about the process that they had a million billion things running at once. And in this one, it feels really vital. I don't know if that's quite a corny word to say. Like, it feels very alive to me because it's so many fun things being really not just like picked up and then thrown away, but like properly lived in from moment to moment. But then the next moment is a new one.
We do a happy hour every Wednesday. I'm not invited, but I'm working my way up to it.
What do you mean you're working your way up to it?
It's been communicated to me that we need to build trust, and sort of the crew likes doing that all together, and they say I sort of kill the vibe.
Okay, what about a theme song like this? If you kill the vibe,
No,
what about this?
I think for a theme song that wouldn't, because for the viewer loves me. Sort of the Jaws theme song. Yeah, sort
That's
of
a little trick.
Sort of a copyrighted Jaws.
Ow! Okay.
Okay, this is a 2025 vintage.
Once a game like the Hurt Yourself and Scream thing has reached a peak and you've had about as much juice squeezed from it as you can play it again, but unless you've magically stumbled across another huge heightening, you can play it again, but it'll need to be kind of like a throwaway kind of pass. So that was a great way of doing that. Check it out again.
Yeah,
That's a little trick.
Sort of a copyrighted Jaws.
Ow! Okay.
Okay, this
so
is a
casual.
2025 vintage.
This is so fun.
Okay, thanks.
I looked at myself. Wow.
You're still healing a little bit on your face, eh? I didn't mean to say anything. Obviously, you're.
You
quite-
did mean to say anything. It came out of your mouth.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything. I'm just saying I can see you got maybe some. You got some surgery.
Say it with your dick.
Back to the game of Vic's, how they use their voice.
Got some surgery?
Say it with your fucking dick.
We're breaking it here. You got a little bit of face surgery?
I did. I love my doctor. Good lay, too. I don't go this long without singing, so.
Why don't you sing this next answer? What's the best gift you ever received?
When I was a boy, my father gave me a toy. That toy was a plane. That plane was plastic. And I will never forget. Any birthdays?
Kind of a story song.
Any birthdays?
And last question, and one that I ask each and every one of my guests.
Any birthdays?
What is the meaning of life?
Whoa. What do you think the meaning of life is?
You know, I have guests ask me this from time to time, and especially recently, I've been thinking a lot about it as I've been doing a lot of introspection.
Just get to it.
Okay.
Yeah, talking game.
Money. Yeah. Money. You know, I think making it and keeping it and living with it and sort of being able to do things because of it.
I'll tell you something about money.
Sure.
As someone who has a lot of it, I don't think it's money.
Okay. Well, then what is it?
I don't need money. I don't even like it. I just wanna throw it away. Sing it. I don't need money.
Money.
I don't even like it.
Like it.
I just wanna throw it away. That's it.
And maybe take a little out of the trash.
Here we go. I don't need money. I don't even like it. I just wanna throw it away. I don't need money. I don't even like it. I just wanna throw it away. Boys, come over here.
Okay, that can't be the theme song though, because
That's gotta be the theme song.
Well, I want money. Okay.
I like it. I need you boys to hold this.
Oh,
Okay. I don't need money. I don't even like it. I just wanna throw it away. Barbara Walters, get in here.
So we have the narrative climax of this. This is something that I don't think I've seen VIP do very much, actually. And I love the episodes that I've seen so far, but instead of being a culmination of games of the scene, this is a culmination of this character arc combined with the narrative arc of the MacGuffin of the song, and that being like this big overplayed sort of emotional moment. It's really nice. Again, if something is compelling, like I said, that's all it needs to be. It's funny as well, and we still have character game in there. Vic's character is self-centered and wants money and wants fame and success.
Okay, so we're gonna kick line, okay?
okay.
Okay, so let's practice this. Cut all this shit out. So we're gonna move this way.
Okay.
Okay, you hold on.
Okay.
Ready? And would it kill you to clap?
We're
Here
not
we go.
allowed to talk to them like that anymore.
2, 3, 4. I don't need money. I don't even like it. This way. I just wanna throw it away. I don't need money. Can we get some lights? I don't even like it. I just wanna throw it away. Come on, Barbara.
I'll take some money. It's
You don't even like it.
I might like it a little bit.
Higher on your floor. Do it with a big dick.
Okay, I don't need money. I don't even like it. I guess I'll just throw it away.
I don't need money. I don't even like it. I just wanna throw it away. I don't need money. I don't even like it. I just wanna throw it away.
Oh, as
if. Come on, boys, take me home. I don't need money. I don't even like it. I just wanna.
I'm Vic Michaelis, reminding you to be true to yourself. Unless you'd rather be somebody else. Good night. So we can't use that as a theme song at all. So that's sort of unusable. We'll scrap it. Maybe get him a Quaalude and then we'll see if we can come back in an hour or two.
What did you think? Did you enjoy it? I'd love to hear your comments. I really do want the comments. People love to disagree with me, particularly about Smosh cast members and particularly about Dropout cast members. If you enjoyed this and want to see me break down a particularly different style of VIP episode, then check out my episode about Jacob Wysocki. If you like the mechanics that I talked about and want to see them in their purest form, check out the recent video I did about Ben Schwartz and friends. It is amazing what they do. They're masters of the art, so it was great to be able to dig into that. Join the channel as a contributing member or just subscribe. All of that kind of thing really massively helps me on the back end get this out to more people. And until next time, keep laughing.